conversation. Hey, yo, let's chop it up, man. Hey, yo, let's have a conversation. Hey, yo, may I interject? It's about time for communal reconnect. Power of the we in some type of context. Working on the us so we can hit up what's next. It's that grown brother, grown sister type of flex. More like soul check, not just collecting checks. Fact, not feelings is what we got on deck. Take the high road, so this here is high tech. Getting to the real, everything that we hitting on. Pull up or sit down, tell me what you sipping on. Reclaiming kinghood, that is what we getting on. Real headlines is what we spitting on. So, hey now, yo, let's have a conversation. Maybe take a sec to talk on what we facing. Only way to change it. Say Picasso, baby, even though it's like Jay, cause it's gonna drive the world crazy. This is for those admiring and looking. I heat it up for Instagram and Pinterest cooking. It's so acrylic every time that I spit it. My foliage show that I all get it. Speaking of, this art get wows and awes, like a masterpiece that's up in the halls. Everything is so realistic, but better yet, man, yo, it's so artistic. Cause and you can tell by the voice that it ain't a joke, and everything is spit is just like a brush stroke. Paint a pitch, paint a pitch, paint a pitch, paint a pitch, paint a picture. Yo, this life is hard work. Now you can tell by the voice that it ain't a joke, and everything that is spit is like a brush stroke. Paint a pitch, paint a pitch.
So every week, on the stream, we'll be featuring an independent artist, the music, calling it the 3D radio break. A couple minutes. Go out and pay some tribute to what we doing on this show is art too. Having the conversation, putting the stream together, trying to make it informative. It's no different than a spoken word artist, hip hop artist, R&B singer. You know anybody who's good, you feel like they deserve, 5-8 minutes on our stream, bring them on. Okay? All right. That was Rob D's, by the way. Rob D's. He's actually the fellow who actually did our original intro theme, Have the Conversation original theme. That was him. So every week on the stream, we'll feature a new artist. I actually have quite a few who reached out, so they'll actually be coming on the panel as well, and we'll feature their song on the break as well. All right. Mr. Pat, Bishop Pat, do you what is fellowship?
What is fellowship?
Fellowship for a woman, yeah.
Her trusting her man, her being a partner in whatever direction he's going into. That would be the main thing.
The main thing, right? Her ability to trust the leadership to follow, even if she's unsure.
Right.
One would think that you would, you can question, a decision. You can express your opinion, but at the end of the day, as a lady, you should always try your best to choose a man who got a good mind for problem solving directions, that you can trust. Because trust and believe, if you got a decent enough guy, he makes a decision and it turns out to be wrong decision, he'll fix it.
Mm-hmm.
He'll fix it. You ain't got to worry about that. So I asked the question, is buck breaking responsible for black women not actually coming into fellowship with black men? Listen, I thought buck breaking was really what the Willie Lynch letter was talking about. The Willie Lynch letter for me was more of like a system of programming. Buck breaking is how you get to that system of programming. So I got a little clip here that's going to talk very in grave detail about about buck breaking and what that is. And then I'm going to play it real quick, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about it. Okay.
Buck breaking was mainly utilized in the Caribbean. It was used against enslaved men who were seen as defiant. The process included forcing the male slave to bend over a tree stump, drop trowel, expose his bare behind while it is propped in the air. The slave was then flogged to tenderize the flesh for the sodomy that followed multiple times. This form of punishment was done in full view of the slave family and friends to instill fear in the hopes to prevent future rebellion. Men of bondage who were victims of this inhumane, sadistic, homoerotic, emasculating punishment often ran away from the plantations or killed themselves as the humiliation was much too strong to overcome. The sodomy was often performed by a white man who traveled from plantation to rape male slaves. Sex farms allowed multiple slave owners to gang rape male slaves as punishment for any supposed wrongdoing. Homosexuality in this era was not a popular pastime, yet raping male slaves as a form of plantation punishment was somehow acceptable. Buck breaking is typically left out of the history books due to its taboo nature of male-on-male rape. Society has ignored any testimony to male-on-male rape until only recently. Sexual violence used to project fear can be a powerful tool of manipulation. Weaponizing sexuality can debilitate one's core self-esteem and disable their sense of community. Buck breaking was a means to squash rebellion before it was even conceptualized. Families of the enslaved bucks were forced to bear witness to the sodomy, ensuring there was no will to be defiant or rebellious. Sexual mutilation, including castration, were other forms of punishment for those with stronger will. These acts solidified the mental dominance white men needed to tame their bucks into obedient, working slaves. Emasculating male slaves physically was the final step to subdue the defiant buck.
Was that description of buck breaking new to anybody?
No.
Unfortunately not.
Yeah, that was yeah, for me, when I actually got into it, I thought buck breaking was, what I mean, I guess it was what Willie Lynch did was a form of buck breaking, breaking the spirit. But the term buck breaking was basically to, completely and utterly remove a man's manhood from him. And in the most vile, vicious way another man can do it. And to remove the spirit of a black man, his manhood, you do it in front of his child and in front of his woman. So the buck breaking did two things. It rendered the male impotent, maybe not physically, but spiritually impotent. And then it also created a profound overwhelming sense of anxiety in the Black woman to realize that the person that's supposed to be there to protect her cannot. And then if you go tie this in with the Willie Lynch letter, there's a portion of the Willie Lynch letter that talks about if you capture the female mind, she will raise her male children weak, her women strong. So this whole notion that our women don't follow us, don't trust our leadership, I mean, is this something that they just that it's so pervasive now that it's just ingrained in who they are?
That's another way to look at it for sure.
I believe so, and by design. I mean,
yeah,
by design.
Yeah, that's what buckbreaking is.
First break in society.
It's still happening. They just changed tactics. But that doing that in front of them, it also destroys the nuclear family, right? Because how can you have this ideal of what this man should be, and now you saw that taken away from him, right? So what is a Black woman left to do but kind of pick up those pieces and still try to allow this man to be the man that she needs him to be, while the oppressor is trying to take everything from him? That means strength. That means family. That means leadership, right? I don't think that, Black women are, in a sense, or ready to just say that Black men can't lead because of things like this, that the systems of oppression have said, no, you can't, and we're going to make sure that you can't. That all these tactics don't say that internally, right, that our blessings from the Most High do not give us the power to lead. This is just showing the systems of oppression that force us into non-leadership positions like plantations and prisons, right? And so then when our women look at what they want from us, what are they left with but images of people coming back from this incarceration where they've been forced to become something that they may not have been.
And can I say what it has done and where everything starts? It starts in the mind, right? So they break us psychology first. Break the mind first. Then you can break everything else.
Yeah, I'm just kind of sitting here quiet because, the more I think about it, I think about what buck breaking looks like today, like what it looks like today. And it kind of made me reassess what they were doing to Kyrie Irving, a little bit.
Yep.
It made me reassess, because they were calling that buck breaking, they were trying to buck break Kyrie. And I'm not sure, and maybe I just don't know. Maybe I just haven't never thought about it, that's what that was.
Yeah.
What they did to Philando Castile in Minneapolis when he was in the car with his woman and his baby and executing him in front of his baby and his woman. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's buck breaking. What they did to George Floyd in full view of the entire world live.
Any type of public humiliation is a part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it happens every time we see another young Black man in a perp walk on the news. Every time you see a young Black man in handcuffs, they make sure it is right in focus, right?
Yeah.
Some of the other things we see, some of the villains, some of the horrible people that we see who have done horrible things, what do you see? You see pictures of them, right? You see them in better images, not us. When we do anything, here they come, bringing us out of the car, putting us into the car, like, this is your home. This is where you belong. these are images of you that I need you to carry with you and pass down to your offspring.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
you know, that trauma and that passed down trauma, you know, is very potent. I remember having a conversation with a lady that I've known for years, and she always just kind of like rails against, like, you know, black men, you gotta watch them, they're vicious, they're violent. I mean, you want to be, the moment you don't do what they say do, they want to kick your ass, and they do this and they do that, and for years. And then one day, and she was giving me the impression that she was speaking from experience, until the day I asked her, have you ever been done like that? And her response was, well, no. I go, what? No. How do you have this view of a black man
Like
and what we are and what we do, and you have never experienced that yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got a girlfriend, or I hear this, and I said, but you have never. And then the more conversation I have with women who talk like that, I always will ask them, you know, have you experienced that kind of violence out of your men? And the answer 9 times out of 10 is no. What that tells me is how powerful it is to pass on trauma, even if you didn't experience it. I have a young lady in my life. She's just about to turn 20, and she is angry and mad all the time, in the worst moods, always snapping. And I'm like, now, that's her mama do that. You know what I mean? Just all, and so she just, when she was 17, she was like, you know, she said something to me. She asked me, she goes, why can't a man keep his word? Why y'all always? And I looked at her. She's 17 at this time. I said, first of all, what the hell do you know about a man at 17? Nothing.
Not
And then fast forward a year and a half later, and she's like snapping about just angry. And I told her, I said, what are you so angry about? You ain't had your first heartbreak yet. What are you angry about? What are you mad about? And then the more I deconstructed that conversation, she's revealing conversations that she's having with her mother, and about her mother's relationships and what her mother is going through. And this mother is passing down this trauma and this imagery of a black man to now a young girl who should be light, airy, happy, bouncy. Y'all remember? Yeah, come on now. When we were all teenagers, man, the girls weren't angry and snap. Man, these girls were fun to be around.
Mm-hmm.
Passing down trauma, passing down imagery, even if you haven't had any direct. That's kind of what I associate, like, with buck breaking and how our women view us, and why they have this knee-jerk reaction to think, or not even to think, but just to say that black men can't lead. Well, why aren't y'all leading? What do you mean? And then when you ask the question, they've never experienced that stuff. And that shows how powerful programming and trauma and passing things on, carrying, you know, I'm a big fan of, don't carry somebody else's water. What you carrying somebody else's water for? Yeah, I started out at the beginning of this, you know, saying that I didn't know how long we're going to talk about this, because it's kind of one of those mood killers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you really start to think about how those things, like, this started happening in 1712, and here we are, 2022, almost 23, hundreds of years later, dealing with the ramification and the effects and the generational centuries of programming, and none of us were anywhere near what was back then. No, we don't know anybody, and we couldn't name a relative that was alive back then. Even our grandparents that were born, like my great grandmother was born in 1910. She couldn't even relate to that. Maybe her mother's, maybe her grandmother, maybe. But this is what we passed down. And we're dealing with right now his image, our man's image, and I said on day one, I think we are the ones who are responsible to trying to fix this. And the question is how. I don't know, it. One, like the brother said, is have to accept what it is, and I think we have a hard time with that too. Yeah, just accepting that this is what it is, that we are here. Just like I have a hard time wrapping. I was telling another one of my lady friends, she has a 25-year-old son, and I was telling her, I said, when your son gets ready to go out and start his own family, he won't be able to start his own family. And she looked at me like I was crazy. I said, if he wants a black woman, he's not going to be able to start his own family. He's not going to be able to start from scratch. He will not have that experience of being with a woman, and everything with her and with him will be for the first time. In order for, we're going to have to do that, but in order for us to do that, we're going to have to even accept the fact that it's hard to wrap my head around that there virtually are no black women left in this country that are single and childless. That number is about 3 to 5%. And once you get past 25, it's basically zero. If we want a black woman to sustain the black race, we're going to have to go in and do that. The 54% of black men who don't have children are going to have to go into the women who got children by other men, and probably a man that's a lesser tier man than you. Well, we'll get to that on another day.
I mean, that's that. I think that kind of goes into it takes a village, right?
Okay.
Like, understandably, right? You have to go into this situation. I mean, you don't have to. It's a choice to go into a situation of a family that already is somewhat built. But as a leader, you take on all the followers, right? And whatever, especially if you are the leader of a community, then everyone looks to you, right? Just because your neighbor lives 2 doors down, they are still part of your community and under your responsibility as said leader. Do they sleep in the room next to you? Absolutely not. But they still need the same thing from you, right? I understand what you're saying, right? Going into this situation is not necessarily built or what we think is designed for us. But think about how many of our families would not have existed if we felt that way from the beginning, okay? Because while Master was buck breaking us, he was sneaking around the slave quarters to deal with our women.
That he called an animal, which is bestiality.
Right. Clearly, they were doing lots of things that they like to turn a blind eye to, right? Mm-hmm. But listen, these are just proofs that the American Holocaust is still happening, right? Because we can draw a direct lineage from Willie Lynch and his tactics to some of the things that we are seeing today, right? Because some of these things, trust me, some of these things are happening behind those penitentiary walls. They just don't make them up.
Yes.
So, I mean, again, I wouldn't say it's the fault of our black women or our communities, because we are the ones who are under attack, right? And so we take this force-fed brainwashing back to our communities and say, oh, this is how we're supposed to be. This is what the black man leadership looks like, compared to the completely scripted of those who we see that are, Supreme Court justices, attorney generals, right? They are generals in military service. We see them. But that is the image that's being painted by the oppressor to say, this is the comfortable Black man in America, not the criminalized one that we see on a regular basis.
I'm a king cause I do what I want and what I need. I don't need you to nobody, I'm busy doing my thing. Mess with me and you could get forgotten, just let it sing. I don't play, I just win, every day I get it in. I'm a king cause I do what I want and what I need. I don't need you to nobody, I'm busy doing my thing. Mess with me and you could get forgotten, just let it sing. I don't play, I just win, every day I get it in. I'm a king and I will never knew. Plotting for my fall, you getting hanged for